The other day, I was innocently humming along to Jet Skis on the Mo, and once I got over my initial guilt of actually enjoying a song from the car, it dawned on me that we've been graced with this controversial album's presence for over half a year now, and noticed that my perception of the car had realistically changed over the past 6 months. So, in the build-up to Arctic Monkeys' Glastonbury headline set, I thought it would be worth reflecting on how my opinion of the album has somewhat transformed, after what felt like a very turbulent and very dividing release of the album. Now, first of all, I think it's best to ask, have I been enjoying listening to the car more now than I did upon its initial release? Honestly, the answer is absolutely yes. I enjoy this album far more than I did 6 months ago, especially once I was done reflecting on what aspects of the album disappointed me, as it meant that I was finally able to get out of my own way a bit and just enjoy listening to the thing. Funnily enough though, my base rating of the album hasn't changed from a 7.5 either, despite me enjoying the album more, which might seem like a bit of a contradiction in some ways, but I think it's pretty easily explained by the fact that I now know what the album brings to the table in terms of a listening experience and what mood I need to be in to listen to it. But I don't think the overall quality of the album has increased in any way. For example, if I'm fancying a bit of Arctic Monkeys, but I'm feeling pretty relaxed and I'm not being too particular about what I want to hear, or about wanting to hear any specific songs either, The Car has been a great album to turn to for those easy listening moods where I want something familiar, but ultimately something I can kind of just tune out to and have on in the background. As a result, I don't particularly subscribe to the idea that The Car is some misunderstood masterpiece, the same way in which a lot of people say Tranquility Base is. Now, whilst it still might also be a bit of a stretch to call Tranquility Base a masterpiece, I do understand the premise behind the concept though, and I do think there is a lot of quality to Tranquility Base that over time has become more favourable with a lot of fans. It was interesting because I did have a fair few comments on my Arctic Monkeys ranking video complaining that I had The Car in last place, but Tranquility Base at second, as they're, under air quotes, basically the same album. Which to me, and to put it bluntly for a change, is complete nonsense. Such a claim is the same as if someone tried to say Favourite Worst Nightmare and AM are basically the same album. Now, in comparison to other albums like Humbug, I'd say Favourite Worst Nightmare and AM sound more alike than either album sounds to Humbug. But that doesn't mean AM and Favourite Worst Nightmare are the same album by any stretch at all. So in the same train of thought, I'd agree Tranquility Base and The Car certainly sound a bit more similar to one another when compared to the rest of Arctic Monkeys albums. But they are definitely not the same album by any stretch. I suppose it still falls into that concept I mentioned last time, where albums 1 to 5 represent a phase 1, with AM culminating and finishing off their garage sound era, whilst Tranquility Base and The Car started this new, more easy listening experimental style era in phase 2. For me though, Tranquility Base has a secure concept, reflecting futuristic ideology somehow woven into the perception of being something that is locked away in the past, and the writing at times, although a bit strange, has won me over and does come across as intriguing and sticking to the concept. Whereas even now, The Car does elude me and doesn't have a strong concept or theme to it. It's hard to see how a lot of the writing relates to one another, besides a few mentions of The Car. Now, I'm being a bit pedantic there, so realistically, if I had to draw on anything as a theme from the album, it's this sense that you're not quite sure what's going on and you're feeling a bit of a haze. Now, I'm not meaning that in a malicious way as in the album's bad, I mean it honestly. The album seems to be centred around the end of a relationship and dealing with heartbreak and the haze that follows, of not quite knowing what's going on and a feeling of discomfort when the person you're in a relationship with has left, and that sense of home and someone who provided your home comforts has gone, and you end up in situations you didn't think you'd be in, or to put it as one of the track titles, you ain't quite where you think you are. But realistically, I think that's a pretty tenuous link to make, and it doesn't quite fully come across at times. Yet still, I think if you dive into this album, you can kind of pull out a concept or theme from it. It's just not a particularly strong one, as I said. Taken away from the writing though, I think the actual raw sound of the album is fantastic and is what I've come to appreciate far more now. As someone who really does listen and absorb lyrics, it's been the hardest part of listening to The Car for me, as the writing itself isn't good enough to hold up the monologuing style of lyrics that feature heavily on the album. But in those times where I've kind of tuned out and I'm not paying too much attention, The Car really does sound great, which seems like an incredibly odd and counterintuitive statement to make, and trust me, I'm well aware of that. I don't think the aim of The Car was to make an album that sounds great to have on drifting through as if you're doing something else, but it's ultimately what it has become to me, and now I understand that, I can thoroughly enjoy this album a lot more. But also I have come to enjoy a few more specific songs, such as Mirror Ball, I Ain't Quite Where I Think I Am, Jet Skis on the Mo, and Mr. Schwartz. And I wouldn't lie, every now and then I do like to go and listen to Body Paint. But overall I think Jet Skis on the Mo and I Ain't Quite Where I Think I Am are very cohesive and enjoyable listens which sound up to the quality of Arctic Monkeys, whilst Mirror Ball does provide me with that gut punch of emotions at times. So overall, throughout the past 6 months, The Car hasn't really dominated any of my listening patterns in the same way previous Arctic Monkeys albums have. And despite how disappointing that was to come to terms with, I certainly have understood my perception of the album far more, and the moments or circumstances where I do find The Car is a great listen, and I just enjoy it without thinking about critiquing it or going into it too much. Sometimes, similarly like when a dog puts its head out of a window just to enjoy the breeze, you simply have to do something just to enjoy it. And maybe not think too much into it. And well, listening to The Car is exactly that for me. I now just put on the album when it's needed and enjoy it. It all seems so simple now, doesn't it, eh? Or maybe not. Who knows? As always, feel free to like and subscribe if you're new. And on that note, I think I'll say ta-ra for now, and I'll see you later.